I wish I could, but I know I can't. I know I can't. Because I'm black.
Because I'm black.
It's always the objective to create a world in which the world does not need police. It frustrates that purpose when the police need policing. We're going to talk about police reform, the warrior versus the guardian. Everybody has a job to do in this world, and we have to be responsible in doing that job. And if we're doing it incorrectly, we have to be held accountable.
I'm a 19-year-old fast food worker and I'm held to a higher standard than our police, and let me tell you why. If a customer is yelling at me over whether or not they get ketchup in their bag, I'm expected to keep calm, cool, and collected and have a smile on my face. If I am rude or so much as have a rude inflection in my voice, I am fired on the spot, no questions asked. If a police officer shoots and maims peaceful protesters and peaceful, innocent black people and people of color, they're given paid leave. Tell me how that makes sense. And the same people that are defending these cops are the people that are yelling at me over the ketchup.
Ninja Goldilocks is correct. Why the double standard, or why the lack of standard for law enforcement? All of this has led to police brutality. And with the advent of social media, the world is seeing that this is practically happening on a day-to-day basis. George Floyd's death has ensued protests all across the world for 4 weeks and counting. And with protests against police brutality, what do we get? More police brutality.
Yo, hey! Hey! Get his badge number! Get his badge number!
Please not in tears. Please not in tears.
It's unacceptable when the police are behaving like criminals, because who's going to police the police? Floyd's death has also ensued competing police reform bills between the Democrats and the Republicans. Christopher Columbus's head was decapitated. Confederate statues are being torn down left and right, and Confederate flags are banned from NASCAR.
Along with the phrase Black Lives Matter, there's another rallying cry: defund the police.
Now, there are two schools of thought when it comes to defunding police. One is to completely disband and dismantle the police and rebuild it. Or second, to reallocate funds from the police to social services. Whether or not the police is dismantled, there definitely has to be reallocation of funds to social services and redefining and rebranding of the police. 3 years ago, Superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, David Brown, had this to say.
We're asking cops to do too much in this country. We are. We're just asking us to do too much. Every societal failure, we put it off on the cops to solve. Not enough mental health funding. Let the cop handle it. Not enough drug addiction funding. Let's give it to the cops. Here in Dallas, we got a loose dog problem. Let's have the cops chase loose dogs. Schools fail. Give it to the cops. 70% of the African community is being raised by single women. Let's give it to the cops to solve that as well. That's too much to ask. Policing was never meant to solve all those problems. And I just ask for other parts of our democracy, along with the free press, to help us.
He's not wrong. We depend on the police to do a lot. We call on them for almost any disturbance that occurs in our lives. And these may be situations in which they are not adequately trained enough to deal with. There was a 2013 study done on police training conducted by the United States Department of Justice. While these numbers are jarring, they truly make sense of things. As we can see here, the police spend a lot of time in combative skill training, such as defensive tactics, firearm skills, and use of force. But when it comes to ethics and integrity, professionalism, victim response, and hate crimes, they spend very little training. The police have a dangerous job, no doubt about it. So it makes sense they spend a lot of time doing combative skill training. But they don't spend nearly enough time in de-escalating training. Now, while more training is necessary for them in these social issues, the burden should not fall on them initially. There absolutely must be more financial resources allocated to social service programs and education. Social services and quality schooling are preventative measures to ensure a person has a pathway to prosperity as opposed to repeated confrontation with the police. Unfortunately, police are trained to defeat what's in front of them as opposed to de-escalating. And it doesn't help when the US government sends excess military equipment to local law enforcement. Defund the police, while a catchy phrase, does cause problems for the Democrats message-wise. The Republicans are already spinning this slogan as a lack of support from the Democrats for the police. Donald Trump, the presidential troll-in-chief, never misses a chance to do what he does. His campaign website is now selling Defend the Police t-shirts. Take a look. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. All right. Okay. Listen, there is no problem in black people supporting the police. We should be supporting the police, particularly the good ones. Now, when it comes to advertising this t-shirt, Trump supporters may say, hey, he's doing a good job in including black people in the message of supporting the police. Others may say that he's trolling the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, wherever you stand on this issue, you know what he did. Now, since the shooting of Michael Brown in 2014, police reform has taken a bigger stage with each minority-related killing by the police. On December 18, 2014, President Barack Obama issued an executive order appointing an 11-person committee on 21st century policing. That committee would look into the deadly confrontations between the police and the communities they serve. In May of 2015, that committee issued a final report on 21st century policing and made the recommendations that include the following. Law enforcement culture should embrace a guardian rather than a warrior mindset. Policies should also include provisions for the collection of demographic data on all parties involved. All policies and aggregate data should be made publicly available to ensure transparency. Law enforcement agencies should avoid using law enforcement tactics that unnecessarily stigmatizes youth and marginalize their participation in schools and communities. In addition, 2 specific strategies recommended for the U.S. Department of Justice include 1, encouraging and assisting departments in implementation of scientifically supported shifts lengths by law enforcement, and 2, expanding efforts to collect and analyze data not only on officers' deaths, but also on injuries and near misses. During his presidency, President Barack Obama launched over 20 investigations into law enforcement agencies suspected of repetitive abuse and entered into 14 consent decrees. The consent decrees were legal settlements requiring police departments to adhere to reform recommendations made by the Justice Department. Essentially, Obama's efforts was leading to a nationalized legal standard of police conduct all across the country. Now, during his time as president, Trump has undone all of President Obama's police reforms. First, Trump has all but ended the Barack Obama-era practice of placing police departments that violate constitutional rights under court-supervised consent decrees. These judicial supervised settlements have, according to experts, deterred police chiefs from blocking federal supervision. Second, he ended a voluntary state collaborative reform program against the wishes of police chiefs, including Republicans, who embraced the initiative. And lastly, he reversed the limits on programs that militarizes the police. With the killings of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and to a great extent Ahmaud Arbery, calls for police reform has come to a fever pitch in this country. On June 16th, President Trump signed an executive order on police reform. The executive order is essentially putting Attorney General Bill Barr in charge of making sure law enforcement personnel are held accountable and to allocate funds to social services. However, Bill Barr and other Trump officials share a particular point of view, and that point of view may soften any efforts to really push for effective police reform.
Do you think that there is systemic racism in this country?
No, I don't think there's systemic. Well, I do think there's racism in the country. Now, systemic in terms of the law enforcement and the police agencies, I don't think there is systemic law enforcement in those agencies. I think there may be individuals, and there are individuals, who may have bias, and sometimes that may emerge and be manifested in some act, but I don't think it's systemic.
I don't believe there's systemic racism in the U.S. I'm not going to go into a long riff on it.
At all in the U.S.?
I do not.
You don't think there's any systemic racism against African Americans in the United States?
I will say it again. I do not.
I mean, if you don't see something's broken, how are you going to try to fix it? And why create an executive order to fix something that you don't think has a problem? How does that work? You're right, it doesn't. In typical Trump fashion, President Trump stated that his predecessor made no attempts at police reform.
President Obama and Vice President Biden never even tried to fix this during their 8-year period.
I've instructed Attorney General Holder to work with cities across the country to help build better relations between communities and law enforcement.
Never even tried to fix this.
That means working with law enforcement officials to make sure their ranks are representative of the communities they serve.
They had no idea how to do it.
It means working to train officials so that law enforcement conducts itself in a way that is fair to everybody.
Never even tried to fix this.
Now, we've launched a police data initiative that's helping Camden and other innovative cities use data to strengthen their work and hold themselves accountable by sharing it with the public.
They had no idea how to do it.
I'm going to be proposing some new community policing initiatives, including up to 50,000 additional body-worn cameras for law enforcement agencies.
President Obama and Vice President Biden never even tried to fix this.
Today, we're also releasing new policies on the military-style equipment that the federal government has in the past provided to state and local law enforcement agencies. We're going to prohibit some equipment made for the battlefield that is not appropriate for local police departments.
You see it. Now, with a tremendous amount of public pressure, some police departments across the country have started to make some changes. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced a series of police reforms, such as reallocating funds from the NYPD to youth and social services, and to enlist community ambassadors to act as liaisons between officers and New Yorkers. House and Senate Democrats have proposed a police reform bill titled the Justice Policing Act of 2020. The proposed bill worked to end racial and religious profiling, save lives by banning chokeholds and no-knock warrants, limit military equipment on American streets and require body cameras, change the culture of law enforcement with training to build integrity and trust, and make lynching a federal crime. Congressional Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer really tried to connect with black folks on this one, with their African scarves and kneeling for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in memory of George Floyd and those who died from police brutality. Not sure if kneeling for that amount of time is a good idea, so let's think things through next time. But let's not be too hard on them in trying to connect with us. They're trying their best. It's not like they were trying to teach us about black culture.
Hey, I'm Dina. Look at my feet. My feet are straight ahead.
Lord, we doing this?
You don't want to do that. You
Okay.
want to turn your feet out.
Here we go.
I'm going to do this backwards.
Word.
And that's what makes it look like hip hop. What this is with hip hop is everything's down low. It all is in a plie. I think the first thing you need to know about hip hop, it's all about your posture.
Okay.
And you know, growing up, my posture was really bad.
Word.
My mom used to tell me all the time, stand up straight, stand up straight. Well, you know what? I was standing up straight. And hip hop is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, hit, and
Okay.
The more relaxed you are, that's what makes it hip hop.
That's hip hop, okay.
This is the first thing I'm going to say to you. You want to do hip hop?
What?
You got to stand like this.
Like
and
this?
In hip hop head, we have this.
Oh, hip hop
Boom,
head.
Bam. Every time. Your hands are always like this.
Like that. No, not like that. Not ever. See, I thought hip hop was more like, you know, something like that. Or old school, hey, something like that. But apparently, hip hop is okay? Black Lives Matter. No justice, no peace. Wakanda. Moving on. Now let's talk about police culture. Most responsible businesses would change their work culture in order to improve their work environment so all could feel welcome and comfortable. Being that a police officer's workplace is the actual neighborhood they protect and serve, police culture needs to change so that law-abiding citizens feel welcome and comfortable in their presence. No one wants to receive the kind of treatment police are giving out these days. Even police don't like being policed. In this next clip, a private citizen steps onto police property and gives the police a taste of their own medicine.
Oh. Who are you?
I'm Detective Mike Jardine.
Oh, yeah? What are you working on?
It doesn't matter what I'm working on. I'm asking you, what are you doing here taking pictures?
Where have you been today? Have you been here all day? Or have you been out and about a little bit?
What is this about? Who are you?
I'm asking the questions. Where have you been today? Have you been here all day, or have you been out at the bar at all?
Working on a fraud case. That's
Okay.
where I've been.
Okay. Have you been to the bar at all today?
No.
Okay. You got any drugs on you? Have you used any drugs today?
What a ridiculous question.
Have you guys ever breathalyzed him while he's been on the job? Would you submit to a breathalyzer for me right now?
You're ridiculous. You know that?
Hey.
You've got about 5 minutes to get out of here right now.
Or what?
Or what? You're on
My
law
property.
enforcement. This isn't your
Yeah, it
property.
is. Shut the hell up. Get out of here now.
What'd you say?
I said shut up and get out
No,
of here.
you get out of here now.
Hey, you better get your boy. Get your butt back in your office
You
and do
shut
your
up.
job.
You shut up and get
You
out of
get
here.
your butt back in your office and do your job.
No. No.
You quit drinking on the job. You understand me?
Whatever.
You punk ass. You get your ass back in there. You don't look back here again. I'll be watching you. You are now under investigation.
I wish I could, but I know I can't. I know I can't. Because I'm black.
Because I'm black.
The concept of the police needs to change. From the warrior to the guardian. A Harvard Law Review article describes the police warrior mindset as such. In its most restrictive sense, the warrior mindset refers to the mental tenacity and attitude that officers, like soldiers, are taught to adopt in the face of a life-threatening struggle. The warrior mindset has mutated into the warrior mentality. With the warrior mindset prevalent across the country in law enforcement, they are taught that the world is a hostile place and that everyone is gunning for them. As early as the first day in police academy, recruits are shown graphic and heart-wrenching videos of a fallen officer's last moments. Now, without anything to balance that kind of training leads an officer to approach any civilian as a threat. And with that kind of mindset, that frustrates any attempt for community policing and to connect with citizens. Not only is the warrior mindset prevalent throughout all police cultures, there's also warrior-style training done privately for law enforcement personnel. On April 18, 2019, the mayor of Minneapolis banned warrior-style training. In defiance, Bob Kroll, the Minneapolis Police Union president, said that he will offer that kind of training personally. A gentleman named Dave Grossman offers this kind of warrior-style training, and he is in popular demand.
There is no action you can engage in that will not be on CNN and YouTube tomorrow morning. You don't have to like it, you got to accept it. It's called reality. There's cameras and umpires everywhere.
Now you begin the process of orchestrating the instruments together in a symphony of death and destruction.
Once you've made the decision to take a human life, you're a transformed creature, you're a predator. What does a predator do? They kill. Only a killer can hunt a killer. Are you emotionally, spiritually, psychologically prepared to snuff out a human life in defense of innocent lives? If you can't make that decision, you need to find another job.
This is the guy training our law enforcement, brainwashing these officers who are part of our community to see any confrontation as an opportunity to show force. This kind of mentality is very dangerous, considering that the majority of your confrontations is with people who lost their way, or someone sleeping at a drive-thru at a Wendy's, or selling loose cigarettes in New York, or using counterfeit bail in Minneapolis. They don't need to die for that. The warrior mindset is bad enough, but it's put on steroids when you arm these officers with military-grade weaponry and gear. As we've seen throughout the years, there has been a militarization of the police. They have tanks, tear gas, shields, masks, and armor. Police officers with military toys without military training. This is all thanks to the 1033 program. The 1033 program gives federal, state, and local law enforcement surplus military weapons and equipment for use in routine policing. The 1033 program was initially created for counterterrorism, but was later expanded to include regular routine law enforcement activity. President Obama suspended the program in 2015 in reaction to the militarized military response to the protests happening in Ferguson regarding Michael Brown's shooting in 2014. In August of 2017, President Trump removed those restrictions and allowed officers to have military gear. During the time of the suspension of the program, there was no increase of crime. A 2017 study done by Harvard Kennedy School of Government and Stanford Psychology Department took a look at the 1023 program and found that there was an increase of violence when police were armed with military gear. Now check out this weird story about this program. The U.S. Government Accountability Office posed as a fake federal law enforcement agency and acquired military weapons through the 1033 program. They successfully purchased $1.2 million worth of rifles, pipe bomb equipment, and night vision goggles. They said it was like getting stuff off of eBay. Wow. Portable weapons of mass destruction, just one click away. Since the GAO sting operation, the Defense Logistics Agency, the agency that operates the 1033 program, stated that they have tightened measures to prevent any future exploitations of that program. Now let's talk about the Guardian mindset. That same Harvard Law Review article defines it as such.
The Guardian mindset takes both a broader view and a longer view of how to achieve a goal. Put simply, the Guardian mindset prioritizes service over crime fighting, and it values the dynamics of short-term encounters as a way to create long-term relationships.
Like any relationship you seek to develop, you want to communicate with the other side as opposed to giving demands. You want to listen and gain understanding. You want to give them a reason to trust you. Now, it's not crazy to think that police officers at one time were guardians, in which they actually served and protect the neighborhoods in which they live. But that kind of guardian mentality is not prevalent today, especially with the quote-unquote war on crime and war on drugs. And with those kind of wars, the kind of soldiers they were using against the enemies were the police, and the enemies were regular people like you and me. Now, qualified immunity must end as presently constructed or be severely recalibrated.
Qualified immunity is a type of legal immunity that balances two important interests: the need to hold public officials accountable when they exercise power irresponsibly, and the need to shield officials from harassment, distraction, and liability when they perform their duties reasonably.
Now, essentially, rationales to allow officers to do their job without fear of retaliation or legal liability. But that rationale has abused qualified immunity tremendously. Now, a police officer can be sued if they act irresponsibly, but if qualified immunity is asserted early enough in the litigation, the judge can dismiss the plaintiff's complaint just like that. This is the lack of accountability that Ninja Goldilocks was talking about. Now let's talk about the roles of the police unions. Most police personnel are part of a union in which they could collectively bargain how much they get paid, how many vacation days they have, and how they get punished. If an officer is disciplined by the police department, the police union can vacate that punishment if that punishment is outside of the scope of the collective bargaining agreement. Never mind whether what's fair, if it's outside of the scope of the agreement, they can't get punished or that punishment can be vacated. Two separate studies, one done by the University of Oxford in 2018 and another done by the University of Chicago in 2019. They both looked into police unions and collective bargaining agreements, and they conclude that those two elements played a role in the increase of violent police misconduct. Qualified immunity and protections for police unions have encouraged police officers and police culture to think that there is no accountability for their actions. It has been the protest that's put some heat on the police officers, and now they rage out just like this.
Stop treating us like animals and thugs, and start treating us with some respect. That's what we're here today to say. We've been left out of the conversation. We've been vilified. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Wow. Maybe now you know what it feels like to be black. And Ninja Goldilocks will go berserk to hear you complain like that. Shame on you. Extensive and comprehensive police reform is long overdue. A rebranding of the police is necessary. Less police force and more peacekeeping. No more warriors. We need guardians. We need you to be heroes, because heroes save lives, not take them. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Max Law. If you want to continue this discussion, leave a comment below. I'll be sure to reply. Hit the like button and subscribe so you can take your legal game to the max.